begins like any other day. People waking up, sipping coffee, scrolling through their phones. Children rushing off to school, the hum of daily life filling the air. But then, in the blink of an eye, everything changes.
This is an emergency alert. A nuclear missile has impacted the city. Repeat, a nuclear missile has impacted the city. All citizens are urged to take immediate action. If you are indoors, remain inside. Do not attempt to leave your shelter. Seek the most secure location in your building, preferably a basement or an interior room with no windows. Shield yourself from radiation by placing dense materials, such as furniture, books, or heavy objects, between you and exterior walls. If you are outside, seek immediate shelter in the nearest sturdy building. Move to the center of the structure or underground if possible. Do not look at the explosion, as the light can cause permanent blindness. Do not attempt to evacuate. Roads are likely impassable, and radiation levels outside are extremely dangerous. Stay sheltered for at least 24 hours unless otherwise directed by authorities. Avoid consuming food or water that may have been exposed to fallout. Use only sealed or stored supplies.
This is what life looks like when a nuclear missile strikes. The first 20 minutes after the explosion determine who lives, who dies, and who suffers in ways unimaginable. The first 20 minutes, life after a nuclear missile attack. The first minute, impact and destruction. It all begins with a flash, brighter than the sun, visible for hundreds of miles. For those near the epicenter, there is no time to react. Buildings, cars, and people are vaporized instantly in temperatures exceeding 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The fireball consumes everything in its immediate path, leaving nothing but ash. The blast wave travels faster than the speed of sound, flattening everything within a 2-mile radius. For those just outside the blast zone, the shock wave shatters windows, collapses buildings, and hurls debris through the air like deadly projectiles. Survival depends entirely on where you are and how quickly you act. Minutes 2 to 5, the fires rage. As the shockwave subsides, firestorms ignite across the city. Superheated air sucks oxygen into the flames, creating walls of fire that spread uncontrollably. Those caught in the open suffer severe burns. The intense heat turns asphalt into molten rivers, and the air becomes unbreathable. Survivors gasp for oxygen as smoke and ash fill their lungs. By now, emergency services are overwhelmed. First responders, if they're alive, struggle to navigate the chaos. Fires burn unchecked, spreading miles from the epicenter. Minutes 6 to 10. Radiation unleashed. As the fires rage, an invisible enemy spreads silently across the city. Radiation. The detonation releases massive amounts of radioactive particles into the atmosphere, forming a deadly cloud of fallout. Radiation sickness begins within minutes for those exposed. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, and severe burns that appear out of nowhere. The closer to the blast, the worse the exposure. Even those miles away from the epicenter aren't safe. Fallout settles like invisible dust, contaminating everything it touches: water, food, and even clothing. Survivors have only minutes to act. They must find shelter, preferably underground or behind thick walls, to reduce their exposure to radiation. For many, this simple action will mean the difference between life and death. Minutes 11 to 15, chaos and desperation. By the 10-minute mark, panic sets in. Survivors stagger through the rubble, searching for loved ones, shelter, or help. The injured scream for aid, but there is no one to answer. Hospitals are either destroyed or overwhelmed. Communications are down, and the streets are impassable. Those who can help are as helpless as those in need. In the chaos, humanity shows both its best and its worst. Strangers band together to help each other survive, while others resort to violence to secure limited resources. The fear of a second attack keeps everyone on edge. For many, the uncertainty is as terrifying as the destruction itself. Minutes 16 to 20, a changed world. By now, the fires are still raging, the radiation is spreading, and the streets are unrecognizable. The first 20 minutes after a nuclear attack have redefined the lives of millions. For many, survival is a cruel twist of fate. But the nightmare is far from over. Over the coming hours, fallout will spread further, contaminating the air and water. Survivors will face starvation, radiation sickness, and injuries without medical care. For those outside the city, the news begins to trickle in. Emergency broadcasts warn of fallout zones and call for evacuations. But for many, it's already too late. The world is now a different place. Trust has been shattered, and fear of retaliation looms large. But in the midst of this darkness, a question arises. Can humanity ever recover from such a catastrophic event? Closing sequence, a grim reminder. The first 20 minutes after a nuclear missile attack reveal the true fragility of our existence. In those moments, decisions are made that determine the future, not just for individuals, but for humanity as a whole. But let this not be a story of inevitability. Let it be a warning, a reminder of why nuclear weapons must never be used again. Because in the face of such destruction, there are no winners, only survivors.